Oh, you really can't see you. So, my name is Asenath Andrews, and I'm the founding principal of Catherine Ferguson Academy. The clock is ticking, so I really want to get through all this. I want to thank you for having me, but I didn't know what to thank you for bringing me to. I thought maybe conversations, but then this morning just my brain exploded, and I work with this man who I think he sends me these things called idea grenades. So he throws it at me, and then I'm walking out the room, and my head goes crazy. So that's sort of what's happening to me here. I've got these thought grenades, and so if I sound like I'm on speed, it's because I'm on speed. So, sorry. So no, I'm not. I forgot. I did a show, this woman, Rachel somebody who's on television, and I said something when the school was about to be closed about we were going to barbecue a goat, and I got so much mail about eating that goat, and the whole issue was closing the school. But anyway, I get ahead of myself. So we started off as a school in a little program that was in an old Salvation Army building, and I tell you that because it's important where you come from. And so before it was a school for unwed mothers, it was a free women's hospital, and after that it then became this place where girls could go if they were planning to place their children for adoption, and then it became this home for unwed mothers with a school downstairs. And then this woman named Aretha Marshall called me one Sunday and said, "Hey, I heard about this school. We got this school. Do you want to go there?" Up to that point, students had been declared physically or otherwise handicap impaired because in the late 50s, early 60s, that's the only way you could get teachers, because girls were automatically kicked out of school if they were pregnant or parenting. So I went to the school, and I realized they got so stuck. They were teaching bookkeeping with these tiny little pens and these little bitty squares. And that's why I'm so surprised I'm at Pop Tech. I just learned that I could buy stuff on eBay cheap today. So I'm not really a tech person. But so our first big project when we got to the school was to make these apple pies, because I think that if you're going to be somebody's mother, you need to be able to make something and do something, because I really believe the revolution was coming. I used to have a little bag near my door, because when the revolution came, Gil Scott-Heron said it was not going to be on TV, so I had to get out of there and get to the revolution. And so So I really believe that was going to happen, and if you're going to be somebody's mother, you need to be able to make some things and do some things, because if they shut this whole thing down, then you need to be able to take care of yourself and your family. So we started a little garden. And then I realized at the old school, everybody was pregnant or parenting, because after you had your baby, you had to leave. But since everybody was pregnant, the pregnant girls, when they were trying to work it, would just tip over. They would fall. So then we learned how to build these raised beds. And that was just, oh man, I was like magic. So we started growing food. And we didn't grow enough food to sell to anybody. We made enough food that we could have one meal at the end of the season, because it turned out a lot of the people who worked at the Salvation Army were also helping themselves to our produce. Later, we found out how to fix that. So I was out one day with some girls, and I really wish I could tell you I was this great visionary that Andrew and the people here think I am, but we were walking around and we were lost, and we found this building that was closed. And Detroit, at that time, there were still about 200,000 students in Detroit, and there were very few closed buildings, and this was just like, oh, this wonderful little school. And there was a window partially open, so we took one of the girls who was not very pregnant and put her through. Well, she just didn't have a lot of stomach, so we put her through a window. And so they were running all around the school and thinking, oh, we found, you get a new house, and you go, oh, that's going to be my room, that's going to be my room. So we were running around the school. Who knew there were alarms in schools? I didn't. And so when we got in, the police came and handcuffed. I got like these 85 pregnant girls and handcuffed, getting ready to get out of there. And he finally noticed that everybody was pregnant but me, and let me go, and we came back. So then we had to try and get the school district to let us have this school. And then they closed another school in Detroit that was just an amazing school. I had this amazing staff that came from the Salvation Army to our new school, and they closed another school called Community High in Detroit, and we inherited their staff. And we inherited this guy named Paul Wirtz, who was a science teacher, but he came from this big family where you had to learn how to do everything. You'd have thought he was thinking the revolution was coming too. And so, but when you talk about magic and innovation, our school was it. Because when Paul came, he brought these 2 rabbits, and these rabbits were supposed to be for the science class, and somehow the rabbits had babies, and they had a horse. And the horse had some chickens, and the chickens had ducks, and the ducks had goats, and then the goat had a pig, and then the pig had some geese, and the geese, E-I-E-I. We got all these animals. And if any of you've seen that, I need to be careful because I don't want Rachel Maddow to think I don't really remember her name, but on the Rachel Maddow show, I actually talked about, I don't like animals, but I already graduated from high school. I don't need to like animals. And so we had a little garden at the old school, and then when Paul came, we got the animals, and so it turned into a farm. And we went from growing just a few tomatoes and greens, stuff that I thought my kids ate, to every kind of vegetable there is. We grow peas, beans, broccoli, kale, collards, tomatoes, potatoes, peppers, onions, garlic, greens, basil, because greens for some people are not what greens are for other people. So you have to kind of make those separate, like mustard, turnip, collards, that's greens, and then this other greens are like those vacant lot salads you get in the new restaurants. So you get, doesn't it just look like they just pull some stuff out, vacant lot, throw it on the plate, go, but we also grow basil and pumpkins and dill, and we just have had some great opportunities for kids to do farming. We also have bees, and if you've ever seen this movie that was made about our school called Grown in Detroit, one of the girls is, I never thought anybody would see that movie. I thought, these people made it, they were from Holland, who knew? But so one of the kids is like screaming because she's collecting the honey, and she's going, 50, 60, 70, 80, 1,000 bee stings. So the board attorneys, that may be why they tried to close my school. But we just have some amazing girls at our school who get to do some amazing things. We have entrepreneurs. We sell some of the produce at the farmers market in Detroit under the banner of Grown in Detroit, so it's sort of a collective of a lot of different growers. Then these are some of the things that happen at our school. This is what our playground turned into. We built a barn, which was just an extraordinary time. We'll have to talk later. I don't have time to talk about the barn. But it was a one-day project. It was incredible. And our job is to make sure our girls graduate from high school and are accepted to a 2 or 4-year college before they leave. For the last 12 years, we've been extremely successful. About 100%, 100% of our kids, 100% of our kids. But you only do that because you decide that's what you expect kids to do, and kids really do what you expect them to do. When we talk about resilience today, I want to talk to that first guy, Sandro, because I think you teach resilience in just fundamental ways without saying I'm teaching you to be resilient, and that's not a part of my talk. I got to get going. So we need to be sure that our kids have a future. That's really a part of what we do. And if I expect that you're going to have a future, then you expect it. Just like my parents expected a future for me, and I had one, thank God. The young woman the one who looks like she has on a doctor's coat, that's because she's a psychiatrist. She's one of our students. The young woman that's over by the bricks, she is a nurse, and the one in the middle is studying to be an architect, not an architect, an accountant. And her baby is just smart, because every day you come to Catherine Ferguson Academy, you should be smarter than you were when you got there, because smart is what you get, not what you are. We've had an opportunity over the years to do a number of things that we call away schools. So we take kids away and do school someplace else. So these are some of the places that we've been able to do that. 3 years ago, it finally occurred to us, or we got the opportunity to do some international travel, so we took kids to South Africa to teach urban gardening. And it was the first time I thought about knowledge transfer or kids being the consultant. So I was holding my kids back without really knowing it. Then the next year, Detroit Public Schools said we were closing, so we closed. But 15 minutes later, we were rescued by Blair Evans from Bruce Kelso Blanche Academy Schools and Chris Wygen, who's from the County Intermediate School District, and they decided that it was more important to save kids than dollars, and we stayed open. Now we're a charter. So a year and 4 months ago, charters were the enemies, now I'm a charter. And Mr. Evans has given us incredible opportunities, more international travel. We've sent kids to Ethiopia. We have kids preparing to go to Ethiopia now, working on solar suitcases and telemetry that you can do from small communities back to the big hospitals in the bigger cities. The politics of that are different. Right now, we just finished building a crater garden, which is a garden that goes kind of spirally down into the ground 10 feet. It creates this microclimate. There are only 2 in North America, and 1 is at our school. So we've gotten an opportunity to do a number of things. This year we went to Big Picture and Big Picture Learning. It is also a really interesting way to start looking at education. One of the new graduation requirements is that every student who graduates now must plant, pick, cook, and eat a meal from her own garden bed at the school so that everybody benefits from that garden program. Detroit is one of those places where apparently democracy doesn't count, because in Detroit and in Michigan we have these things called emergency financial managers who just discount the vote of the people there. You don't get to have any say, because I don't know where we live. It's not the United States. So it is particularly distressing to me that if you get the government you deserve, then, and if they aren't doing their job, you don't vote them out. But in Detroit, the mayor doesn't exist, the governor doesn't exist, the city council doesn't exist. The governor exists. He decided that we couldn't take advantage of what we had. It is important to me that my girls have a certainty of opportunity, and the way that you get a certainty of opportunity is to give people tools so that they can create that certainty for themselves. One of the things that we're doing now is that we have a small group of kids who have been working this summer on a design for an intentional community. So they're about 12.5 acres, about 7 or 8 blocks from the school, where the girls are going to build, well, they're going to plan, design, and build an actual community. And within that, we're thinking about new ways of thinking about economy, new ways of thinking about community, new ways of thinking about happiness. And so this is our advanced design team that worked this summer. I have learned so much stuff since working with these girls. I never heard of a composting toilet. What is that? We are talking about water reclamation, and this whole, this village or community that we're building is a net zero building with the Living Building Challenge imperative. If you've never looked at that, that's a really interesting way of living and thinking about the way you build things. Right now, our school is at a real crossroads. For some reason, since the threat to the school being closed, our enrollment is way down. So, and there are all these people who think Detroit is either ground zero or this wasteland, and people come to Detroit and they say horrible things about it, and I just have been thinking about a CCW but don't have enough impulse control, so I can't blow up enough TVs or get mad enough. If I have a gun, I'll be in bankruptcy because I'll just be shooting all kinds of inanimate objects because the people on them have no faith in the future of Detroit. One of the things that I've learned in graduate school, and not a lot other than it was expensive, was that you are really shaped by the conversations that you have, which is why Pop Tech is an important thing and why these random meals are even more important. I met this amazing man at lunch who taught me about eBay. I'm so excited. And he also taught me about venture capital. I mean, it is about conversations that you can have, and we need to make sure that kids get conversations that they might not have had before. we've really started to think about things and the environment and ideas that change. This big picture has given me an opportunity to have conversations with kids about social justice and the effects of racism on the view of crime and the application of punishment, or the future of music, or new economies, or happiness. We thought about solutions for schools for a long time, but we need to start thinking about solutions in a different way, not just tinkering education, but really fundamentally changing education. And how long have we heard that? So when I was in school, I was definitely during that Sputnik time, and that was really urgent. I mean, they would post your spelling test grades because you couldn't let the Russians catch you. It was so important to be ahead, and we don't believe that now, and we don't believe that that's going to happen for our kids. So how do I get that message to my potential students? There are 4,000 girls in Detroit who are pregnant or parenting, and we only have 200 this year. So I got to figure out how to get that message to them. How can we really transform Catherine Ferguson Academy into an innovation incubator school? How do we get kids to start thinking in those ways? Make it a real new school for the 21st century. How do we do that? Some of the questions, Andrew said to me, what the questions are as important as the answers. How do we stop keeping our country from imprisoning more Black and Hispanic boys than we graduate? We need to start having think tanks with kids in them and not grown-ups. We need to have kids where they figure out the solutions and that they are the ones who will tackle those big problems, and not just those little smart egghead kids, or not those little nice girls who wear a skirt to school every day. We need to have real kids talking about, here's the problem, here are the solutions. You know, and there are all these people who say, oh, they can't do it because they don't have the fundamental structure, they don't have the pedagogy, and they haven't had that academic background. Stop being a hater. Stop drinking that haterade. You know, there is no reason why kids can't think through problems. They think through problems that figure out in their life. So if you are one of those people, have a drink and get out. Because what do we have to lose? We have to lose poverty, we have to lose prisons, we have to lose urban blight, we have to lose dependency, and we have to lose pollution. There are a number of things we have to lose. And what do we have to gain? We have solutions. If we put kids in a place where they are really working, where they're really having those conversations, where they're really being expected to think, we get solutions. So celebrate.